Welcome back, everybody, to Two Spot Monkeys Live after a week off. I think, yeah, we were off last week. I'm Jim. I'm joined as always by Tom. Tom, how you doing, sir?
What's up, Jim? Great to be with you. I'm doing well. We are officially in summer, even though the calendar hasn't told us it's summer yet. That's June 21st, as I think we've mentioned here before, my wife's birthday. So I never forget when summer starts. And I'm forgetting the term officially. I'm going to use the word officially, but there's
something like that.
Yeah, the summer equinox, summer solstice.
Solstice. There you go.
So yeah, but summer is here because kids are out of school. For those that don't know, I work in school-based programming. So the work that I do really is focused August to June, but my work doesn't end. But I have a little bit of a slight respite, but that also then changes things for us to being able to connect. So looking forward to today and the remaining couple weeks we have before we take a little bit of a summer vacation. We have a lot to catch up on. I know it feels weird when you said we weren't together last week. We weren't, but it didn't necessarily feel like that because there's been a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's already summer. It's been the 90s here pretty much all week, which I am not built for heat. So I'm not a huge fan of the 90s. The humidity hasn't really laid in yet. It's coming, I know. So, but anyways, this isn't Weather on the Nines with the Monkeys. So,
but don't we keep you on your toes?
That's right. You never know what we might talk about. So the last time we were together, it was head-to-head Palooza, of course. For those who might be joining us for the first time, Tom and I do head-to-head picks on all WWE, AEW, and Ring of Honor pay-per-views, premium live events, whatever you might want to call them, depends on whether they are a pay-per-view or a premium live event. And we do those in 2 shifts. We do January to June, and then we do July to December. So we had 3 cards to pick the last time we were together because of a very busy Memorial Day weekend with Night of Champions, Battleground, and Double or Nothing all happening, which will lead us into one more show here in this half of our head-to-head picks, which will be Forbidden Door in a couple of weeks that we'll make our picks for then. But Tom, you and I kind of stayed even, really. Night of Champions, I was 4-3. You were 5-2. Our difference there was Cody and Brock. You were correct in Brock winning that match. Although did Cody lose because he didn't actually tap? What?
Look at you angling.
I can. And as I was watching the match unfold that weekend, I was like, yeah, I'm probably going to be wrong on this, actually. So I was not feeling good about that. Battleground, I went 4-2. You went 3-3. I had Tiffany Stratton winning the women's title, which she did. You had Lyra Valkyria, and so I was very happy when I saw that I had gotten that and had kept things even because we had the same picks on Double or Nothing. So we both went 7-2 at Double or Nothing, which brings our total going into Forbidden Door in a couple of weeks at Tom, you at 58-22, and I'm at 57-23. So 1 match difference. It'll be interesting to see the card come together in the next 2 weeks here for Forbidden Door. I forgot to change our banner there. Already 2 huge matches announced officially for Forbidden Door, with Kenny Omega defending the IWGP US title against Will Ospreay, and what I didn't realize until I looked it up and then have heard since, a first-time match between Bryan Danielson and Kazuchika Okada. I don't know why in my head I thought they had wrestled at some point in Ring of Honor, but they have not. So
yeah, I was gonna say not Ring of Honor. I swear they've been in multi-mans in New Japan, but maybe I'm making that up. Wow.
Nothing. So really cool. It feels like there's so few dream matches left that haven't happened at some point, other than kind of cross-promotional stuff. You need somebody, and this is cross-promotional, but it's, Danielson has been in companies that have worked with New Japan pretty regularly, except for his WWE run. So I'm a little surprised that match never did get booked in some of those New Japan and Ring of Honor shows, but we're getting in a couple of weeks. So, but we'll talk more about that as we move forward. But
yeah, and let me just say, I didn't see Double or Nothing. I believe you did, so I'm excited to hear your kind of firsthand takeaways from that. And Memorial Day weekend's always tough because we have a lot going on with family and friends. We also now have a conflict on the 25th. My daughter has her second wedding shower, but it's on the other side of the state. We should be home that night, but I really want to get to Forbidden Door. Like I'm going to plunk down the $27 and go to the theater and watch that. So I don't know how I'm going to manipulate our day to make sure we're home in time, but I'm going to work my darndest to make that a reality. And if not, and if we're just getting home at 8 p.m., I'm probably plunking down $50 for the pay-per-view because those matches alone, those two matches that you mentioned, just incredible. Not the pro wrestler, but just incredible.
Yeah, I made that comment on a friend group that we're in on Facebook that they don't even have to announce anything else, and I'm buying the pay-per-view at this point with those two matches. I never saw Wrestle Kingdom this year, so I haven't seen the first Omega Ospreay match from this year, and I probably will try here, maybe even this weekend because I've got some time to go back and see that because I'd like to. I've heard nothing but obviously amazing things about it, so I wouldn't mind seeing that before this match in a couple of weeks. But that one, and then like I said, Danielson Okada, two of my favorites. Sign me up, like you sold me. Nice job, Tony Khan. I remember not being, and there was some injury stuff as I remember last year going into Forbidden Door. I remember not being super excited about Forbidden Door last year, and then it being an awesome show, and it was like show of the year. And I'm already pumped for this one. Like now I'm like, and that's a weekend where my wife doesn't work, so we tend to have more things going on. But yeah, that Sunday night I'm gonna try very, very hard to whatever we need to do on Sunday. We need to be done by about 6:00 my time here, so that I can be down in the man cave watching that because that'll be good.
And we are also just wanted to bring some historical context. We are actually outperforming our past performance for the last two segments of head to head. It's not huge, but we are performing, percentage points wise better. We're picking at a higher success rate than we had previously. We'll see. It's going to be really interesting to see how many matches we get at Forbidden Door. AEW.
AEW and a New Japan pay-per-views could be like 15.
They've been doing a better job, though. Let's be fair. They've been doing a better job of like really giving us like 8 or 9 matches. So if they give us 9, we may have less picks this segment than we did a year ago, and even for the second half of last year, which is again, it's totally fine. We pick what we pick because it's what's available. We already know as we turn the calendar and reset. July has got Money in the Bank right off the bat, and then we've got a Ring of Honor pay-per-view that's been announced. So let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. And with WWE doing less premium live events this year and making, which I like because they made them each seem bigger and more important, which is good. And they don't just feel like a glorified Raw, on a Sunday or a Saturday. That makes sense that we'd have some less picks just because there's, I would bet if we looked at the number of shows, there's, 1 or 2 less shows as well that we picked. Although Ring of Honor running pay-per-views helps. Well, we've kind of been squirreling a little bit around things here, but let's just kind of real quick run through results for those shows, and then we'll do each one maybe and just snippets of either what we from the show or things that have happened in the last 2 weeks coming out of those shows that we're interested in. Click on the right tab here. Jim, Night of Champions was the first show. The World Heavyweight Title Tournament Finals match started the show. Rollins over AJ Styles in a really, really good match. Trish Stratus beat Becky Lynch. Gunther beat Mustafa Ali for the Intercontinental to retain the Intercontinental title. The Raw Women's title match, Asuka defeated Bianca to win the title. That was just great for my already terrible Fantasy Wrestling League season. SmackDown Women's title, Rhea Ripley. I think Natalya actually did make the trip to Saudi, but you wouldn't know it from the amount of time she actually got in the ring with Rhea. Rhea beat her in like 20 seconds or something. Brock Lesnar beat Cody Rhodes, as we mentioned before, and the unified tag title match, Owens and Zayn over Reigns and Sikoa when Jimmy Uso super kicks Roman intentionally a couple of times, not accidentally this time. So did you see Night of Champions, Tom?
I did. Okay.
Thoughts either on the show or on the things that have come out of it, or
Yeah, so I mean, Seth winning, we all, I believe, felt, and I think everyone in the world felt was a foregone conclusion. However, it was still, like you said, a really fantastic match and super strong in terms of that build. And I love the spotlight that Rollins is now being able to have, and the interplay, whether they're all storyline or whether there's some truth, and there's probably a little bit of both. Some of the comments he's been making about Roman Reigns, about you need a champion who's going to be here every week. I love that. He's like, let me be this workhorse and let me put this title on the map and establish it. So that's super cool. The main event was super fun with the tag titles and the continued bloodline interplay. I mean, when I grow stale of that, I may be shocked. I may never grow stale of that story. It's just they've really continued to be really thoughtful to me about how they've woven that in, and I don't see everything, right? Like I missed SmackDown last Friday. I know there was probably an amazing angle because I know they had an in ring segment, but I've only just seen the clips. So, and the only other things I'll say too, that I want to just name, the way Bianca lost, which again, I think we both picked Bianca to win. So surprised that Asuka won, but we said if Asuka doesn't win, where does she go? So makes sense she won. The cool part for me was how she blew the mist in the hand and then rubbed it in Bianca's eyes that was pretty sweet. And then just Zoe Stark's elevation. Zoe Stark was someone that I always was like, she's just not getting the opportunity really in NXT. And so now it seems like this is a platform for her too. She will end up likely putting over Becky Lynch in the end. However, but being paired with Trish Stratus and then being then by proxy involved with Becky Lynch, and now they're both in Money in the Bank. That's pretty cool to me.
Yeah, and I think there's at least a chance that she wins Money in the Bank. Like if they're going to really strap the rocket to her, I that's not a spoiler on what my pick is going to be when we do Money in the Bank picks, but she'll be in my thought process anyways, because they seem to really be behind her in a big way. I mean, they brought her over to Saudi, like the big trip, right? You only bring the people you need for those shows because it's really expensive and all of that. So yeah. Zoe's a big piece going forward for them, no doubt. I echo a lot of what you said. I thought the finish of Asuka and Bianca was good. I thought Mustafa Ali looked really good against Gunther. I thought there were they had at least one moment where I had that like, oh my gosh, are they actually going to do it? Kind of feeling. And then, of course, when he kicks out, immediately I'm like, no, of course they're not going to do that, Jim. Like they're not going to end Gunther's reign. I like Mustafa Ali, but they have not put Mustafa Ali in a position where that's the guy who's going to beat Gunther. Like much like Roman, and I still think it'll be Cody eventually when Roman loses that title. Gunther losing the Intercontinental title whenever that happens needs to absolutely mean something, and needs to elevate somebody. And as much as it could elevate Mustafa Ali, they haven't done enough to get him to the point that it then can do that. It would very much feel like a transitional champion or back to Gunther or whatever. So yeah, they weren't going to do that. Yeah, and Rhea just killed Natalya. I mean, nice of them to give Natalya the payday because Saudi, we always hear that those are really good paydays. But man, they brought her over to get murdered. Interesting with Seth, the workhorse thing, I 100% agree. Defended the title, and what I hear was a very good match on Monday. I haven't seen it with Damian Priest. Again, maybe I'll get a chance this weekend to get back and see that. I want to see the Owens Gunther match from Monday as well, because I've heard really great things about that as well. And they're two of my favorites going right now. So, but interesting that on Tuesday night, I saw Braun Breaker challenge Seth to come to NXT and defend the world heavyweight title against Braun, which I kind of like that interplay. Like you're getting Seth all over the place, which is good. Seth Rollins appearing on NXT would be good for NXT, I would think, and good for their ratings. And it gives Braun something to do for a couple of weeks, now that he's not really in the title picture anymore with Hayes after losing the rematch. So, which we'll get to in a minute. So I thought that was interesting and not something I would have seen coming. Like if you would have said someone's going to challenge Seth for the world title on NXT, and Braun makes a lot of sense. Don't get me wrong. If you're trying to come up with somebody from NXT to do that. I like that better than Baron Corbin against Carmelo Hayes. But anyways,
don't you be hating Baron Corbin.
And the worst part is if they can get him back when he was King Corbin or the Lone Wolf, like I wasn't a huge Corbin fan, but he was fine. He had a place, but he just lately it's been booking more than anything. And that's my problem. Like you've booked him to mean nothing. And now all of a sudden he's supposed to be a threat to Carmelo Hayes. Like why is he a threat? He hasn't been a threat to a sandwich lately. Like a 3-year-old has beaten him, I mean, like, come on.
King Corbin was so cool. I bought the year.
Right. And he was, and their booking has just killed him. So that's my only thing when they do this, when they bring somebody over to NXT is it was the Dolph Ziggler thing. Like I hated when he won the NXT title. We talked about it here on the show because you had made him a nothing. And then all of a sudden he came in and beats, the unbeatable champion at that point. Like, no. Well, he's a wily veteran. Yeah, but he can't win on the other show. So all you've done is show that your guys in NXT aren't as good. Like you've established that now that they're not as good as the main roster, and you shouldn't do that. I don't think Baron Corbin's winning the NXT title from Carmelo Hayes. So I hope I'm right on that. Anyways, my goodness. Let's talk Battleground next because I feel like Double or Nothing will be the bigger piece of the conversation. So Battleground, the North American triple threat match, started. Wesley defended over Joe Gacy, and Tyler Bate. The Heritage Cup title match happened next. Noam Dar defeats Dragon Lee because apparently we don't have a clue how to book Dragon Lee in WWE. I am beyond frustrated.
I wasn't mad about that. I wasn't mad about how that played out. I want Dragon Lee to win. We said that both, right? But I wasn't mad about how that played out.
And maybe that's my issue is more just, I want him to get some wins. And not just because I have him in fantasy wrestling. The last man standing match, insanely great match. Ilya Dragunov over Dijak. Both of those guys are stars. And I hope one day get the chance to show that on the main roster. The NXT tag title match, Gallus, the team that just won't go away, as we called them a couple of weeks ago. And I should have seen that coming and like zigged when you zagged with the Creed pick. But I just didn't think they were going to keep them. Beat the Creeds. The NXT women's title tournament, we already mentioned that. Tiffany Stratton over Lyra. And then Carmelo, as I mentioned, defeating Braun Breaker. Did you see Battleground, Tom? Did I lose Tom? Or did you all lose me?
I'm still here.
Okay. Did you see Battleground?
I'm still here. Yes, I did see Battleground. I watched it. Watched it on Monday, I think. I watched it on Memorial Day.
Okay. Thoughts? I saw it too. I'll be honest. I thought it was fine, but outside of Ilya and Dijak, nothing that like set my world on fire.
Yeah, pretty much the same for me. So the North American title 3-way, the Heritage Cup, and the Last Man Standing were kind of what I was down for. Even like, I want to take back what I said about Tiffany Stratton. Not that I was besmirching her name, but I do really feel like she's the right fit. And even though I think there's room to grow, she clearly is ready. Like that is a character and a personality that just beams across the screen. So yeah, that's cool. I'm super glad that Carmelo and Braun are hopefully done. Again, this was a great match and great atmosphere because of it being in Lowell and Carmelo's connection to Boston. That being said, it's still, I don't know, like. And again, I don't think it's Baron Corbin, Carmelo Hayes is what allows Carmelo to break out next.
No. Just no. I think that's probably my easiest. I thought it was fine. I probably didn't help that I watched. It was the third show I'd seen that week. Actually, it was more than the third show because I had watched. No, it was the third show I'd seen that weekend. I'm sorry. I was going to say Tournament of Survival, but that was last weekend. I had watched Lifestyle. That's what it was. From GCW that weekend as well. So So it was the fourth show actually I'd watched that weekend, not counting any just TV wrestling I had caught. So it probably didn't help that it was probably towards the end of my stamina as far as wrestling shows went. But yeah, I thought Ilya and Dijak were great, and the rest of it was fine. Nothing was bad. I mean, it was a good show. If you're an NXT fan, you should have enjoyed it. And if you weren't an NXT fan, I don't think you would have walked away going, "Oh yeah, that's why these guys are, in NXT." I thought it was a good show. Well, let's talk Double or Nothing. Because certainly lots happens at any AEW pay-per-view. We started on the buy-in, or the 0 hour buy-in, I think it was. Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, and Hook over Ethan Page, Austin Gunn, and Colton Gunn, and as a result of that result, for lack of a better word, Matt Hardy now controls Ethan Page's contract, and I continue to not care. The international title 21-man Blackjack Battle Royal, Orange Cassidy won the Battle Royal over everybody and their mother. Really fun Battle Royal, but we can talk about that later. Then the unsanctioned match, Adam Cole over Chris Jericho. The World Tag Title match with Briscoe as the special ref, FTR over Lethal and Jarrett. The TNT ladder match, Wardlow defeated Christian Cage. The women's title match, Toni Storm defeated Jamie Hayter to win the title, with a lot of gaga before the match started, kind of leading to that, I would say clearly covering for Jamie's injury. We had discussed that, and Annette had brought that up while we were recording last, and neither of us listened to her enough to change our pick, and shame on us. So nice call, Annette, on that one. The trios title house rules match, the House of Black over the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. The TBS title match that had been announced, Jade Cargill defeated Taya Valkyrie to retain her title and go to 60-0. And then she issued an open challenge, although I didn't feel like it came across as an open challenge, and then it turned into one. And Chris Statlander re-debuts, or returns, I should say, and defeats Jade Cargill, giving her first loss. And Chris Statlander wins the TBS title in a huge moment. The world title match did not main event the show, as we kind of talked about. Maybe it shouldn't. But MJF over Darby Allin, Jack Perry, and Sammy Guevara, and then Anarchy in the Arena, just a crazy brawl, crazy match. The Blackpool Combat Club defeats the Elite when Konosuke Takeshita comes out in a mask and attacks Omega and reveals himself to be aligned with Don Callis. Don Callis, the next Wednesday night on Dynamite, mentioned something about building a family. So I think that's going to be interesting to see. Does he create a stable? And I love me some stables, so I'm okay with that if he does. You did not see Double or Nothing. I think we talked about that a minute ago here. I'm sorry for that, because it was a really good show. It was, I guess it was fine for a while, and then it cranked up there at the end. Thoughts just on the results as you read the reports and saw reactions and things?
Yeah. So, when we go 7-2 apiece, and the two losses are the same, not a lot of surprise. I think the really cool thing was Statlander's return. I was really excited to see that, and it made tons of sense when I saw that she was the person to dethrone Jade. Like, I haven't given it thought, but if you were like, dude, what better way? And I couldn't come up with something, right? I really for where things are at, and for how over Statlander was previously, and the quality of a wrestler she is, this is awesome for me. Like, I love that this is going to take the TBS title to the next level, I think, from what it was. And Jade did tremendous, and the whole story around her being 68-0, and then now Chris is the 1-60-1.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had mentioned 2 weeks ago that Statlander seemed like somebody who could. I didn't know it was going to be that Sunday night by any means. So that was really cool. The minute she came out, I was like, yep, here it is. I mean, there's no way you bring her out in that way and then have Jade beat her. That would just kill the momentum of her return. So it was pretty obvious she was going to win in that moment. I've seen some things online that Jade is going to take a break here for a little bit. and maybe get repackaged a little somewhat, which I think would be interesting to see how they would repackage her, since she was, a focal point there for quite a while in the character that she portrayed. So I'm curious what her repackaging might look like. That'll be interesting to see for down the road whenever she might come back. Other pieces along the way. I thought the Battle Royal was just really fun. I like Battle Royals, and there was some good interplay. I liked that it came down to Cassidy and Swerve, and then they had some time with just the two of them too. It wasn't just like, oh, the third guy who was left got eliminated. Now quick, somebody dumps out the other one and it's over. So they had some time. It kind of looked like Swerve was going to win the belt once or twice. So again, that was really fun. The unsanctioned match I've seen get some not great love for Cole and Jericho. I thought it was good. I didn't love the ending where Cole was just kind of pounding on him and the ref stopped it because he couldn't defend himself anymore. Partially because a ref stoppage in an unsanctioned match feels weird to me. I think that was maybe my issue. Like, I get you have to protect the athletes and all of that kind of stuff, but the finish was a little weird. But obviously that story isn't totally done yet either. So they had their mixed tag match last week, and I don't know if there was more this week. I have not seen Dynamite this week, nor have I read much of anything outside of the announcements and things like that that were made. So I don't know if that continues, but I know Cole moved into a world title eliminator for next week. So maybe it is done. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe Jericho interferes in that match next week too. So, but I thought that was good. I loved Takeshita's turn. The minute he came into the ring, I was pretty sure that's who it was, because we had talked about before that Takeshita could have been the fourth person with the Elite and perhaps turned. Obviously, they went a little different direction with Paige, which makes a lot of sense. And still Takeshita and Callis. I hope this leads to more Takeshita on my TV, on Dynamite or Collision or Rampage or wherever, because I really like Takeshita. English is not his first language. He does well, okay, with promos, but you can tell, that's a growing place for him as a young guy. So putting him with Don Callis makes a ton of sense. Don Callis, the heat Don Callis had on the Wednesday after Double or Nothing on Dynamite was crazy. Like, that crowd could not stop booing. And, they were so mad. And which is great. Like this is going to sound really strange when I say it, but that was like Dominic Mysterio level heat. Because Dominic might be the most hated and over heel right now in wrestling, which is crazy to say. Like Dominic Mysterio, but he is. Like, everybody hates that guy and they want to see him get beat up, and they hate him in a way like that works, because you want to see him get beat up, and now they're maybe moving him to Cody here for a little bit. And Don Callis was absolutely at that level, maybe more, on that Wednesday night after Dynamite. So that was cool. Although
and it continues this week on Dynamite if you have not yet seen that.
Okay. And yeah. And I do intend to watch that probably first thing tomorrow. And the only other thing I've seen recently that was even close to that amount was from GCW last week when Blake Christian cashed in on Masha and won the title. So, the GCW crowd hates Blake Christian in again, the right way. Like, not like, oh, we don't want him here because he's a super talented wrestler. But he's done so well at being this smarmy heel in GCW that they just hated that he screwed out over the champ. So I think heels are doing some good things across wrestling right now. It's just kind of fun. Wrestling works best when there's somebody you want to see get their butt kicked. Like, that's just like wrestling 101, right? That's why you pay your money. You want to see the good guy beat the bad guy. It actually works if you build it right. When they get to Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita, sign me up. Like, that's going to be fun. But you don't have to get there tomorrow. And I don't know, maybe they've announced it already for something. I don't think they have, because I feel like
they have not. Yeah. So my wondering would be, is that at All Out? Is that at All In? Whatever. Or like, and when I say that, I'm confusing what's the UK show and what's the US show?
The UK show.
All In?
All In is the UK.
All
Out is Chicago. Yeah. Or we think Chicago. I don't know if it's been officially announced for Chicago. Actually, I don't think that date has been officially announced. It's happening. We all know that. Right. It could work there. At one of those shows, you also could see some form of Elite versus CM Punk and FTR. That could work too. If they're willing to work together, we'll see. We're getting our first look at that trio, or our first look in a while at that trio, next Saturday on the debut of Collision, as they take on a strangely put together, although maybe there's a storyline reason that it gets pulled together here on Wednesday that I haven't seen, of Bullet Club Gold and Samoa Joe.
Yeah, I'm gonna spoil it for you and say there's not.
Okay. It's just
it's kind of one of those things where you kind of need to know some of the stuff behind the scenes. Samoa Joe and CM Punk go back, so that makes sense that Samoa Joe's in the mix. You could have given us just a CM Punk Samoa Joe singles match, but maybe there was some feeling that maybe that alone may not have met expectations. When you have 6 men, you have more people to carry the workload. There's also, I think, reports, and I'm sure you've seen these, that CM Punk is high on working with Jay White. So It seemed like this may be a hand-picked opportunity for him to get that right from the start.
Yeah, no, 100% on both counts. And I think actually a 6-man for Punk's first match back is smart. Let's see where he's at before you put him in a high-profile singles match, and just make sure all is well. It's been interesting, and I'm squirreling off here for a second, but there's been a lot of conversation online that Collision tickets aren't moving very well. One of the upcoming Collisions has sold 600 or 700 tickets so far. I mean, which is not good, right? And that's even after CM Punk's been announced as being a part of Collision. I think that there is a little bit of a feeling with CM Punk of well, sure, he's been announced, but will he actually be there in a month? Because of everything that's happened. Because it feels, for me, I'm is everybody just kind of waiting for the shoe to drop and yeah, that's going to explode in everybody's face and it's not going to work. And, so.
I want to dig into that. But before we do, is there anything else on Double or Nothing that you really wanted to share out about? I'm really interested in just your take on the main event, the Anarchy and the arena match. I don't know. Tell me what I want you to tell me about is the exploding shoe. What in the world? How in the world?
It was cool. It was one of those I actually had to rewind it and watch it again, because I was what just happened? Did I just see what I think I saw? Yeah, I mean, it was kind of out of nowhere. Matt Jackson comes in and super kicks. I don't remember now, Moxley, I think it was.
Yeah, how does John Moxley have a face is really what I'm wondering about.
Right. I mean, yeah, it was this firework explosion. And I'm guessing maybe he actually hit him more in the shoulder than the face. But crazy. And Matt Jackson had to apparently get a Nevada fireworks performer, permit or license. And I'm how does John Moxley also not need that? Because he was absolutely involved in that stunt. Actually, he feels like he was more in danger than Matt Jackson. I mean, Jackson was in danger the entire time getting into the ring. And, and there's my other piece is I'd be curious how it happened. How does it work? Because he had to have, I'd have to go back and watch, but he had to have stepped on that foot to get over in position, right? I don't remember him hopping on one foot to get over there. And then how would you throw a super kick when you're hopping on one foot anyways? It wasn't like Kangaroo Matt over there. So I thought it was a really cool, inventive spot. It was one of those where you're I've never seen that in pro wrestling before. And because it's never been done in pro wrestling before, to my knowledge, maybe in some FMW match exploding, whatever, but I don't think so. Yeah, I thought it was a really cool, inventive spot. I guess I don't understand how it doesn't lead to the finish. You just had an exploding super kick. What do you do next? Other than obviously that wasn't the planned finish, and we had to get to Cash in there. Yeah, it was a very cool spot. I'm sure you've seen clips of it or memes of it or something online. And yeah, one of those, like I said, where you see it and you're what did I just see? That was a new thing. But it was fun. I thought it was a fun spot.
That's cool. Anything else in Double or Nothing before I pivot us?
Not really. Definitely worth seeing. Was it their best pay-per-view ever? Probably not. Was it their worst though? Not a chance. And I don't know, even the worst AEW pay-per-view has been pretty darn good most times. So
well, and with that, it's worth seeing. So I want to just say, I know digital media is kind of becoming like the dinosaur of our era. I wish AEW did Blu-rays of their pay-per-views, because I would definitely buy them and collect them. This now marks the third consecutive pay-per-view that I've missed. I missed the one last November because I was on a getaway with my wife. Whatever the one in March was, I'm forgetting the name.
Full Gear.
Full Gear, thank you. No, Full Gear was November.
Nope.
Revolution. Revolution.
I always have to remember which one. Yeah,
Revolution was my anniversary weekend. So clearly,
right.
once again, the wife takes precedence. And then this one being Memorial Day weekend. So yeah, again, like I said, I do intend and really want to make Forbidden Door a priority. And then, I'm waiting also for the shoe to drop with Max. I've stayed subscribed to Max over the last couple months in the hopes that I'm going to be locked in when they do announce some AEW streaming. Please give me that, Warner Brothers Discovery. Tony Khan, let's go. Okay, so that's not what I wanted to pivot us to. So to your point with CM Punk, so Tony Khan, AEW, has been really intentional about going, this week we're announcing a big announcement. It's Collision. The next week, we're going to announce where it's going to take place. It's going to take place in the United Center. And next week, we're going to announce the first main event. And then they give us this. To your point, though, with the history that AEW fans may feel about being burned by CM Punk, or they might have scorn towards CM Punk, what would you do if given the opportunity to incentivize A, ticket buying, and then B, viewership for, let's say, the first 6 weeks of Collision?
Yeah. I don't know. There's got to be something to do. So to go back to your earlier point for a second, and not scroll, we've got an announcement, and then we're going to have another announcement, and then we're going to announce CM Punk, and then we're going to announce the match, and then we're going to stop. Because all it does for me, anyways, this is just me. It does nothing feels important. Like now, Tony Khan making an announcement of anything, and this is not just about Collision. This is, Tony's been doing this a while, right?
My and I'm sorry to jump in. My problem is the cadence with which he makes these announcements.
Yes,
he's like half corpse. I love Tony Khan. I think that man's got all the energy in the world. And I know he does, because when I've been able to attend Dynamite live and he comes out and interacts, like, he brings that energy. That's not conveyed in these announcements.
It's funny. Squirrel. Fair warning. Bruce Pritchard sometimes talks about guys who I want to say Brad Armstrong might have been one of them, who are super charismatic in the back and super funny and super all of that, and then the red light goes on and it's like they freeze. And I feel like that might be Tony a little bit, because it sounds like you said, live, he has that energy and all of that. But yeah, when he does those taped announcements, especially when he's out in front of the crowd, which is rare, although the little gangster hat thing that he wore for the Owen Hart announcement on Double or Nothing that's weird. And I don't understand. They were playing off the Calgary Stampede. There's nothing gangster about the Calgary Stampede. It's the world's richest rodeo. What are we doing? If it was in Chicago, I could see playing off of that, right? The Al Capone, the mobster, the whatever. That was weird, and just somebody in creative should have been able to go, no, don't do that anymore. Change that. But anyways, I agree. The cadence, and just that as soon as they announced the United Center, you knew CM Punk was involved, because there was the question, because when he first announced Collision, they didn't announce where their first show was. And so there were reports all around, well, maybe something happened with Punk and they're not going to go to the United Center if Punk isn't there. They're going to do it at Daly's place. They're going to whatever. Well, then he announces the United Center. So then and then they say, and next week, Tony Khan has a very special announcement about AEW Collision. And you're like, it's CM Punk. We all know that. Like, no, there was no shock value to that at all. Maybe there were like 3 people that watched it were like, oh my God, CM Punk's coming back. Like most people who watch AEW, I think, because I do think this is one of AEW's challenges that they have. Most people who watch AEW are also pretty tuned into the, for lack of a better word, the dirt sheets, the whatever, the Fightfuls, PW Insiders, Wrestling Observers, all of those. So they're really interested in that kind of stuff. I don't think AEW has as many of the casual wrestling fans as WWE. And some of that's just longevity, right? They've been around, 3.5 years, 4 years. WWE's been around forever. So, that's an uphill battle, and that just takes time, and it takes success, and it takes all of those things. Selling 65,000 tickets, at Wembley isn't going to hurt you in that process. So nice job, AEW. But yeah, repeat the point that you asked me before, though, before we squirreled all off here, Tom.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So my wondering is in regards to A, ticket sales, and then B, making it destination viewing, because I get that Saturday night has a history on professional wrestling. That's a history that was a long time ago. And I understand Saturday night can be considered fight night, if you're looking at it from the MMA perspective or the boxing perspective, but I'm not sure that I feel like that with pro wrestling. At least maybe that's my perspective, and maybe I'm on an island of my own. So it's going to be challenging to go and make 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock every Saturday destination viewing. I really want to, but my reality is, if I'm going to go take my wife out on a date or be out with friends or go to a baseball game, there's a lot of options on a Saturday night, especially in the summer. We're right. Yeah. Middle of February. Sure. That's fine. So my wondering was, what would, if you could, if you were in charge and to really bring butts to the seats and eyes to the screen, what would you do in the first 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever number makes sense to you? What would you maybe try? Right. Because so here we have and I'm bringing this question to you broadly, but I'm also connecting it back to yes, if there's concern about CM Punk sticking around, do you use him? Do you create something with around for him? And I have a statement, but I don't want to tell you before you share. And if we're the same, I'm happy to say that too.
Sure. That's a great question. I don't know if I have a firm answer. The first thing that popped into my head, although I understand why they're doing it the way they're doing it, because they're doing a Canadian tour, is maybe highlight the Owen Hart tournament on Collision. Or some tournament of some kind, if with stakes. I don't want just don't call it the Collision tournament, and don't, for the love of goodness, make it a Collision title tournament. We got God's plenty titles, especially because Ring of Honor titles still show up on AEW, which is a whole different topic that you and I have talked about before, and we'll continue to talk about. Well, they continue to, they had a Rampage a week ago or 2 weeks ago that was Championship Friday. There was not a single AEW title defended on Championship Friday. On an AEW show. It blows my mind sometimes that, and even now with Will Washington as the director of wrestling operations or whatever his title is, and I have listened to Will Washington on podcasts for a long time. I like the guy a lot. I think he's very smart. I think he's going to be a huge addition for AEW. But somebody in there had to go, can we defend one AEW title on this show? Like Battle of the Belts. We had that conversation the last time around too. But
and that clearly was an unofficial Battle of the Belts.
Right. And I wonder if that's what's going to happen moving forward with Battle of the Belts, is if they'll just kind of do these themed rampages and things. But so having some sort of a tournament, it's a little hard. I was trying to think, could you do a best of 7 series with Punk and somebody? But you got to set that up somehow. You got to have a reason for that. So that's a little tough. Unless, and this probably wouldn't be worth putting on Collision every week, although it would be interesting. You did I'm going to say a gauntlet, but I mean that week to week. I don't mean it all in one show, of Punk versus Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, Adam Page, and lead up to Punk and Omega at All In or something. That would be interesting. But again, you need a little time to set that up. You need at least a week or two to have a promo or something before that. You can't just say, on Collision week 1. So, yeah, and I think people are also, this is just my opinion, kind of waiting to see, it's nice to say Collision is going to be as important as Dynamite, but you kind of said that about Rampage, and we've seen what's happened there. So with, if it becomes a brand split, even a soft brand split, if it's just the guys that you're not focusing on Dynamite and you're not making it as important, or somebody's got to win a title over on Collision that we haven't seen on Dynamite for a while or something. Like Miro needs to win back the TNT title or something like that. I mean, I'm just kind of throwing ideas around. You've got to find a way to make that feel as important. And I agree with you. The viewing on Saturday night is going to be tough, even for me. I don't have kids, but I've got a wife, and even if she works that weekend, which is going to be ending here soon when she opens up her own business, Saturday night's prime time for us to go out and do something if we're gonna, or if we're home, we might be catching up on some TV, although there's not as much in the summer. We might be watching a movie. Chances are on Saturday night, she's not going to be like, oh yeah, go down. I mean, I do it for pay-per-views and premium live events. Probably not going to happen every Saturday though. I'm going to try next week because I'd like to watch the first Collision live. But I don't know yet. We'll see. So I guess that's what I'm thinking I would do. What about you? What was your thought?
Yeah, no, so totally, it was absolutely the Owen Hart tournament. So like, I feel like it would be really wise to say, hey, Collision is going to be the home of the Owen Hart tournament. You're going to see every match from,
and then make sure you put top guys in that tournament.
Precisely. Yep. And and here's the thing. Not that you have to do this for him. And he actually would be wise to be utilized well, but then also used to put over someone. But we'll see if his ego would allow this, even if it were to happen. Having CM Punk be part of that, with his love for Bret Hart and then his honoring of Owen Hart, but then having him not win that, right? Like, it'd be.
Yeah, I don't think you can have him win that tournament, right?
Right. Yeah, and you got to use his cachet. He can lose to someone. And not lose anything, him running through people, so yeah. So that was good. That was going to be my opinion too. So when you named it, I was like, I saw, I don't know if you saw, I had a huge smile on my face, but yeah, but in addition to that, just like being really intentional about some storytelling, like, and too, like if you're bringing back Andrade and he's not going to be connected to LFI, like, what do you do there? What do you do with Miro? What do you do with Thunder Rosa, right? And
Sky.
Yeah, that was one of the names that we haven't talked about, and I'm a huge fan of him. So when I've seen him in the video promos, I'm like, yes, cannot wait for that dude to come back. I don't know what he's been doing. I don't know why he's been out. If it was a long-term injury, if he had to have surgery, whatever. I don't know all the behind-the-scenes stuff, but the fact that he will be back in the ring, like I loved him as TNT champion. I loved the stuff he was doing. And I wanted more.
Charismatic and super great in the ring. I don't know how they don't get behind him. I mean,
yeah. So now this opportunity. So I know we're short on time for today. We're gonna wrap up here. And next week when we're coming back, we're gonna come back on Thursday.
Yep.
We'll be 2 days out from Collisions. I imagine we'll have a little bit more information on what the debut will look like. I had listened to a podcast and it was one person. So they were picking as if they were CM Punk and Kenny Omega being like a brand split. And I really didn't like how it played out. There was definite bias on the Punk side of things from my listening ears. And if you listen to the podcast, you know that there's favoritism. Not that there's hate towards the other side, but it's skewed. I kind of would like for us next week, depending on what we know or hear about Collision, to maybe spend some time just doing that. Like let's do a 10-round, like, you get Collision, I get Dynamite, or vice versa, and then we build these brands, and then we just kind of spitball, the next 3 months of stories and angles and what we could have on TV.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Let's plan on that next week. So our Collision Dynamite fantasy draft next week. We're gonna, for those who do listen live, we're gonna record on Thursday morning around our normal 8:15 Eastern start time. Probably we'll do that for the next 2 weeks, I believe, is our current plan. And then, as Tom mentioned at the beginning of the show, there will be a little bit, if you followed us for the last 115 episodes, you know that the month of July usually becomes a ghost town here at Two Spa Monkeyville. And we usually kind of take that month off. Just schedules don't align for us to do that. And then sometime in August, usually, or early September, but we try to get back to it in August if we can. We get back at it a little bit more regularly. So a couple of weeks still left here on this run with Two Spot Monkeys, and then we're not going anywhere. We just have our normal, summer siesta.
I like how you said with this run. We got a couple more runs left in us.
Right. I mean, and we've said this before, and from the bottom of our hearts, anybody who listens to this, and I know we don't have a huge listenership, and I don't care, because for those who do listen, we truly appreciate that you give us, an hour or a little bit more of your time each week. We started this back during the pandemic, came back to it because we had done it years before, and it had been a number of years since we got back at it. We started during the pandemic. If nothing else, it's just something for Tom and I to do, to like give ourselves an hour or sometimes 2 hours back then, because our lives allowed for that a little bit more, to connect as friends, but also just talk wrestling and maybe get away from just the craziness that was going on in the world at that time. If you would have told me back then when we restarted that we'd make it 115 episodes and more coming, because again, we got 2 more weeks still before our little July break. I would have said you were crazy. I never thought we'd get this far and keep going. So we're loving it. And we hope you're loving it. Tell your friends. If you have friends who watch pro wrestling, let them know. Tell them download.
And I would say we don't take wrestling too seriously. Like, we do kind of like look at it from like a fan's perspective, but with a business perspective. But it's not like we're not like, well, you need to know the backstage stuff, brother. No, it's, we bring that to the table with what we think we know and what we've heard, and then what actually plays out in reality. But it's 2 guys who are friends who enjoy professional wrestling, and it's a great opportunity to do still escape from the real world, even though we're kind of post-pandemic.
Even though we're not in a pandemic, it's still crazy out there.
It's still crazy. Yeah. So when you said that, I was like, brother, it's still crazy out in this world.
Right. That part hasn't changed. And I think I hope everybody hears us say, again, like Tom said, these are our opinions, just our opinions. If you like what we hate, like if you loved the Dolph Ziggler NXT run, I mentioned that earlier that I didn't like it. Good. And I'm glad you enjoyed that. And that's great then, because not everything WWE or AEW or Ring of Honor or GCW or fill in blank Impact, whoever, not everything they do is going to hit for everybody. And not everything they do is for me. And that's okay. There are wrestling companies that I don't, tend to pay attention to just because it's not my thing. It doesn't click for what I enjoy watching. It's not that I dislike it or that I'm against it or that anything. It's just not my thing. There's TV shows that are that way, right? I can't watch every TV show out there. So enjoy what you like. It's great. Like, have fun with it. And if you like the stuff I don't, that's cool. I won't tell you you're wrong. Please don't tell me I'm wrong. But life's too short. Enjoy what you enjoy. As long as it's not hurting anybody, enjoy what you enjoy.
Exactly. As we wrap up, happy birthday to one of our listeners, Robbie Hart. Robbie, happy birthday. I know you had a birthday this week. And I know you were at Tournament of Survival and Cage of Survival last weekend. Loved seeing you on Fight TV at those GCW shows, and hopefully you didn't come away with any wounds.
That's right. Hopefully no broken light tubes flying at you, because I watched Tournament of Survival. I didn't get a chance to see Cage of Survival, but as a crazy show, crazy weekend, as expected. I mean, it's a deathmatch tournament, right? Like, everybody was winning with side headlock takeovers. No, that's MJF. Anyways, that's a story for another week. Well, as we wrap up here, again, Thursday, for those who listen live, next week we will be recording. For those who listen on the podcast version, that just means it'll probably come out a day earlier than it normally hits your podcast app. So that is if I remember to download it and put it on the servers at the correct time, which occasionally I do forget. So everybody, thank you for listening. Be safe out there. Have a great week. And we will be back with you next week for more Two Spot Monkeys Live.